Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I have a super practical training for you today. This is one of those unicorn trainings. Like, everybody is going to get something out of it. Beginners, intermediate, advanced, there's something for everybody. And it's insanely practical. Like, you can use this on such a wide range of projects. Let me show you an example. Now, on the surface, this looks very simple. These are process cards or step cards. They count like step 1, step 2, step 3, but there are 2 key requirements, especially with this design in particular, which again is fairly common. And I will say that 95% of developers build these the wrong way. And I'm going to show you the right way. And there are 2 requirements for building this the right way. First requirement, the cards have to count themselves. You can't just statically number these things, because then you can't use them in a loop. And if you need to shuffle them around, it just causes chaos. It's really annoying. It's not maintainable. It's not scalable. We need these cards to count themselves automatically. That's not actually the hard part. That's fairly easy. You can do that with CSS. You don't need any JavaScript or trickery, but I will teach you how to do that. The second part, and this is going to get us into the advanced territory, is this cutout. You notice that the numbers they appear to be cutting out the border of the card. That is not so easy to do. Now, what most people will do is they'll create a box with a number in it, and they'll give the box the same background color as the section that the cards happen to be in. The problem with that is, once again, it's not very scalable and maintainable, because you've got to manually control that. There are ways to maybe automatically control that, but if you use a gradient background on the section or a pattern background of some kind, these cards will not be compatible with that design. What we need to do is we need to build this in such a way that the background doesn't matter. It could be gradients, it could be patterns, it could be whatever, doesn't matter to us, and we never have to touch it. We never have to change it. There's a specific technique that we can use to build this card. But again, we got to talk through it. We got to walk through it. I promise when I get to this advanced part, I will go very, very slow. But we are going to build this step by step. So buckle up, grab a coffee, grab whatever you need. We are going to learn something today. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and jump into Etch. Okay. So I'm going to create a section. I'm going to duplicate the container that is inside. This one right here is going to be my intro. This one down here is going to be our process grid. This is going to be our process section. Okay. This is going to be my intro, which is going to have a heading, and it's going to have text in it. And we will just call that intro. I'm actually just going to create BEM classes. Actually, I'm going to make this a lead, and then I'm going to right click, create BEM classes. So we have a heading and we have a lead in our intro. Next is my process grid, which I am going to put a flex div in. This is going to be my process card. In that, I'm also going to have a heading and text. Now, the difference is this is going to be an H3 heading. So I'm going to change that to H3. I'm going to change this to description. Now, we are going to be using some pseudo elements for the numbering and all of that, so we don't actually have to put those things into the card. I'm actually fine with just these 2 elements in the card. So I'm going to go, actually, I don't want to create the component there. I want to create BEM classes. We can make this a component for sure if we want to, but we don't need to worry about that right now. I just want to get my styling classes added. And then this is going to be process grid. This is going to be process section. I'm just hitting Command Enter to pull up that add attributes bar, and I can go really fast with that. Okay, on our process grid, let's just say display this as a grid. And let's say that this is going to be a grid 3 with grid template rows of 1 FR. And so now if I duplicate that, you'll see that we have 3 cards showing up in that grid. I'm just going to say our process with this heading. And for here, I just want some Ipsum text. So we're going to say Ipsum short. And then I'm going to grab, I don't need all of that. I'm just going to grab that little bit right there. And then with my intro, I'm going to say align items to the center. Typography is going to be text aligned to the center as well. On this lead right here, we can say, what do we want to do here? Maybe we'll go to dimension and we'll go to inline size, maybe 50 characters, something like that. I actually want to put this on the max inline size. So that's working pretty well for our intro. Now we're going to say this is step 1. This is step 2. These are going to be the static headlines, right? And then I need some ipsum. Actually, I'll just copy this ipsum right here and I'll paste it in there. Awesome. And for our description, I think I want this typography to be text S. So that's going to be a small text size. In our process card itself, under layout, we're going to go with a card gap. Now you can put whatever values you want. You could 20 pixels, 30 pixels, 1 em, half an em, 1 rem, whatever you want to do. I use a variable first approach. This comes from automatic CSS. And so everything is tokenized and it's already tokenized for me. So all I got to do is plug in tokens where they're supposed to go. And I don't have to think about any numbers and I don't have to think about any relationships with other numbers. And it's just very efficient. It's very fast. Okay. I want to align the items to the center. I also want to text align these to the center as well. And we are getting very, very, very close. Now I am going to take off just a little bit of copy out of these cards. Okay, perfect. And I'm just going to start styling the card up just a little bit by adding some padding. So we'll go down here. We'll say card padding. See, I don't have to think about, again, I don't have to think about numbers or values or anything else. Now, I will tell you, we're going to flip back to our example here. Okay. This border, because of the technique that we are going to have to use for the cutout, we can't just put this border on the card. I would show you, let me show you how I would do that, okay? I can go even to border right here, and under this border property, I can do something like 1 pixel dashed and then like my border color dark, okay? And if we go and we look at this on the front end, which I'll open in a new tab, there you go. There's the border, okay? Now, the border on this website is actually not 1 pixel. I actually have something called border width, and it's something that's like 1.5 pixels or something like that. So that's like the real border, but I'm just gonna tell you, okay, a little warning, due to the techniques that we have to use, we're not going to be able to put a border on the card itself. We are going to have to use pseudo elements, okay? So I'm going to put in our first pseudo element. We're actually going to need a second pseudo element for the number, for counting, okay? And so I might as well just do the first one, which is going to be our border. And I want to go slow and explain this because everything I've done so far is extremely fundamental and very beginner. And now we're going to take our first step into intermediate territory. This is not to the advanced territory yet. This is into intermediate territory. So I will slow it down a notch, okay? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take that border out. We are going to go down, and this is where custom CSS really comes in very, very, very handy. Doing this kind of thing with a UI is extremely annoying. So we are using what's called nesting in CSS. This is vanilla CSS. There's no trickeries or anything like this. You can do this in any CSS now. And we are going to add a pseudo element using an ampersand. An ampersand is a reference when you're nesting. An ampersand is a reference of the class that you are doing. It's like me writing process card again, okay? But what I can do is I can attach my pseudo element to the ampersand, and this is going to create a pseudo element. If you don't know what a pseudo element is, I'm going to write hi. It literally produced an element on the page called hi. It's not a real element. I can't click it. I can't select it. But it is there in the DOM, and it actually shows up as a child of the element that you add it to. Okay, and so there's my pseudo element. You can see already that if that had a number, it would look like a step. Look at that. But we're not doing content right now. Okay, we're doing design. And so I want actually to create a border using a pseudo element. So that border effect that we were just looking at, I want to create with a pseudo element. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to make blank content. If you make blank content, no content shows up. However, you can still make shapes. Okay, so what I can do is I can give this a position of absolute, and I'm going to show you a little bit of a trick here. Well, I'll walk through this step by step just by making this easy. Width 50 pixels. Height 50 pixels, background of red. I make a box. I just made a red box. Look at that, okay? Now, when we do position absolute, if I gave this coordinates, which we use the inset property to give absolutely position things their coordinates, and this accepts 4 values going in order and clockwise, top, right, bottom, left, okay? So the top value I would say is 0, Don't mind the fact that it flew out of our box. Don't mind that, okay? 0, the right side value would be auto. I don't care how far it is from the right. I don't care how far it is from the bottom, so that's auto. And then from the left, I actually want it to be 50%. There's a little caveat where absolutely positioned elements don't actually go halfway when you put them 50%, which is why you have to translate them back. Don't worry, I'm going to do this all over again. I'm going to translate it backwards 50%, which is just going to actually kind of nudge it. And then this other 0 is from the top or bottom. I don't want to do anything to the top or bottom position, so I'm putting that at 0. And then the reason it's way outside of our box is because there's no attachment context, right? So in order for this pseudo element to attach itself to our card needs a position of either absolute or relative. In this case, we want it to be relative. And now you see that that red box is attached to each specific card, okay? Now, I'm going to do that over again and show you, well, what should have happened, okay, is we want the card, if we know we're going to absolutely position something in the card, start by positioning the card to relative. That way, when you're doing your coordinates, right, I'm about to do my coordinates now, you'll see that the coordinates actually render properly and make sense so you can see what you're doing. So position relative on the parent should actually be your first step in this. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give the coordinates again. So remember, top is 0, and I could just say 0, right? And here's an actual trick because remember, I'm trying to create a border around the entire card. I actually don't want a 50 by 50 red box. I want a box that is the exact dimensions of my card. And a trick to doing that with absolute positioning is just do an inset of 0 and then take away any height or width. And you're going to see that what it's trying to do, it's trying to attach itself to all 4 corners. And if you try to attach something to all 4 corners, what do you have to do? Like a bed sheet, you have to stretch it across the mattress. It's going to cover the whole entire thing. Okay, so that's what my pseudo element is doing right now. Okay, now the next thing I want to do is I want to z-index this of -1. And whenever you z-index of -1, it's going to go in the back layers wise. It's going to go on the very bottom-most layer, but that can actually go behind things in your section if you're not careful. And so what we want to do, this is borderline intermediate advanced, okay? This is why I'm walking through, I'm like talking through every part of this. When you go z-index -1, you need to determine where it should stop, okay? And I want this to start going backwards, but I want it to stop when it gets to the actual card boundaries. Don't go behind anything that the card is on top of, okay? Stick with the card. And so the way you do that is you set isolation to isolate on the element where you want the bottom layer to be. Like it can't go, this is the basement. It can't go below this. The card has a basement. We're going to put it in the basement of the card, but it can't go underground. It can't go any further down beyond that, okay? So isolation, isolate, z-index -1, these work really, really, really well together. Notice that one is on the child, one is on the parent, okay? Great. Now, we can keep going. Do I want a red box? No, I don't want it to have any color. What I want is to give it a border. What border? The border I was trying to give the card originally, okay? So I'm going to say border, and I'm going to say border width, and then I'm going to say dashed border color dark. And then if I hit tab, etch is going to wrap the bars and it's going to make all of that stuff work, okay? Then I'm going to say border radius, and this is going to be my card radius. Once again, etch will wrap the var for me. Okay, so now I can just save. I can look at this. Okay, we have exactly the same thing, but we're not going to run into any problems as we approach our final destination. You're going to see very important. I will explain why we had to do that with a pseudo element in just a minute, okay? All right, the next thing that we want to do is we want to get our counting going, okay? And so I'm going to come down here and we're going to add another pseudo element. You get 2 pseudo elements on any element. You get a before and you get an after. I already used the before. I'm now going to use the after. So I'm going to say ampersand after. Content. Now, I'm just going to put in a static number. We're going to position that number. We're going to change the number size and all of this. We're going to get it in the right spot. And then we're going to figure out, we're not going to have to because I'm going to teach you. We're going to learn how to make that auto count. Okay. So we're going to say content. Guess what? I can position it absolute since I already did that. I've already got it relative. The parent is already relative. So I can just put this in its proper position. How do I do that? Inset and then top 0, right, auto, don't care. Bottom, auto, don't care. Essentially, auto means go away from that side. Just stay away from that side, right? And then left, I want 50%. And what did we learn about positioning something 50% from the left? If you want it really in the center, you've got to translate it backwards 50%. So now that is dead center right here. I want the font size to be a value, but I want it to be a referenceable value, which means I need to create a token for it because I'm going to need, you'll see, well, should I just do it static and then I'll do it static, then I'll build in the dynamicness of it so that you can see how we go from a situation where, okay, things might break to, oh, we created an unbreakable situation. That's what we're trying to do. When we talk about doing things right in web design, we need to be thinking about creating unbreakable situations where if something changes, the whole thing's not going to catch on fire and fall apart, okay? We'll see exactly what that means in just a second. So font size, I'm just going to say is H1 for right now. I want the line height to be just 1 on this. And I want to give it some dimension, okay? I'm going to give it an inline size, that's a width, and let's say this is going to be H1 times 1.5. And if I hit tab, it's just going to auto var that, auto calc that. That's really good. Okay. And I can actually take this and say that the block size is the same thing. I didn't copy the C in the calc. Okay. So I've got inline size and block size. I'm essentially creating a square out of this calculation. Take whatever the size of H1 computes to, make it 1.5 times that. And then what you can do is make it that on both dimensions. Okay. So it is a perfect square. Now I want to move, instead of positioning this at the top, I want to move it so that the number is halfway, like the border is cutting halfway through the number. Well, I need to move it up. How much? Half of its size. Well, guess what? I know what its size is, okay? I just need half of that size. Now, doing half of this, again, is going to create a situation where this is very messy, right? You don't really want to do it like this. So times 1.5 divided by -2 will essentially, let's put a background color on it so you can see, background of red. And okay, so the box, this is why putting backgrounds on things actually does help. You can identify where your boxes are. Putting like this box is perfect. It's in the perfect position. The number is not in the right position in the box. We need the number to be in the center of the box. Turns out this is quite difficult in CSS for a lot of people. Centering things in CSS, not the easiest for many people. I'm going to show you the easiest possible way to do it. When you have one item, display grid, and then what we're going to do is place the items. So place items, center, it's going to put that right in the middle of the box. So little display grid trick for you. Display grid, place item, center. I'm just making sure my head's not in the way of anything. It's not. I need to make sure it stays that way. Okay. I think we're good. What I'm going to do is move myself real quick. I'm going to put myself right here for a minute. Hopefully I don't think that'll get in the way of anything. We can even move that down. Good. Because we're going to get into some little crazy CSS here in just a minute. Okay. And I really hope I'm going slow enough. Listen, if I'm going too fast, feel free to pause, rewind, go in slow motion, whatever you need to do. But I can't go hyper slow because then I'll lose the advanced people. They'll be like, whatever, I don't care anymore. Okay. All right. So let's keep going. I'm going to take away the background of red. We don't need that. My number, guys, is now in the exact right position. And now what I have to do is I need them to just auto count. I don't want them to be static anymore. Okay. So I'm going to go to my section up here. And again, I'm going to come down into custom CSS and I'm going to say, process. Okay. I'm sorry. I get a counter increment, counter reset. There's counter increment, there's counter reset, there's the counter function. These are very powerful in CSS for auto counting things. What we need to do is tell the browser where to start counting. And I have to think about this multiple times because it's not the most intuitive syntax, okay? We have to do a counter reset and then we name the counter, okay? So I'm gonna call this process. So counter reset process. That's not very intuitive because shouldn't I be setting the counter? Like I wanna counter set, I wanna set a counter, okay? But it's actually counter reset is how you name the counter. My nose is very itchy. We have literally 90 layers of pollen outside this window and it is, I'm not doing blow, okay? I'm not a Coke guy. That's not me. I know I have high energy and I'm rubbing my nose a lot. Doesn't look good, okay? This would be very hard to explain in certain situations. It's allergies, okay? I've got the pollen. So counter reset process. We're essentially naming this counter. Now what I can do is I can go to my process card, okay? I can come down to my content where I'm putting my number and I can actually put a counter function and I can say process. And now it's gonna put in some zeros. And now what I can do, which is also not intuitive, is counter increment of process and suddenly it's counting itself, okay? So if you wanna auto count things, that's the process, no pun intended, that you can follow. And what's great about this is, look, I can take step 3, which is right here, and move it. And look, step 2 becomes 3, and step 3 becomes 2. The auto counting kind of makes this order of these things kind of unbreakable, as long as you're not referencing them statically in the card, obviously. But if I created more of them, like, well, look what it's just gonna keep going. I mean, this is fantastic, right? Okay, let's, we don't need all of those. We do not need all of those. I don't even know what there we go. There we go. Okay. I was trying to like, what is my keyboard shortcut for deleting things again? It's a new environment. Okay. It's a new interface, but we're still making good headway. Okay. So I've got auto counting process cards. I've got a fake border. I've got numbers in the right position. And now we arrive at probably the most advanced part of this tutorial, at which point now I will slow down tremendously, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I am going to create a mask. I'm going to create actually 3 masks. I need to retain almost everything going on except for a little chunk right here. And that's gonna require some advanced masking. But this is going to be a great lesson for you. It's such a good lesson. And I'm going to give you so many good tips for how to approach this when you're doing this on the fly and you're trying to do it from scratch and you're not able to use a generator for this. Okay. So what we're going to do, it would be very hard to use AI for this as well. All right. So what I'm going to do is I am going to first create a background. And I recommend when you're masking, you use background gradients because you can actually see what you're doing, okay? And so I'll just show you. And I'm just gonna do this on the card. This is not where we are going to use the mask, but it's where we can do our work. All right, so I'm gonna say linear gradient. Anytime you do a linear gradient, you're using a linear gradient function. And we're just gonna put in 2 colors, red, red. If they're the same color, it's gonna be a solid color. It's not gonna be a gradient, okay? This is gonna be red, red. Now, we're gonna use a special shorthand for these linear gradients where we're gonna put a lot of information in the same function, okay, or the same line, all right? So the next thing we're gonna say is no repeat. We don't want this back. It's actually, this is not part of the linear gradient function. This is part of the background property. It's shorthand aspects of the background property. And it's actually a syntax that you do not see very often because you don't need to do crazy shit like this very often. But when you do, it does come in very, very, very handy, okay? So what we have is no repeat. We're gonna do position. Now I'm just putting keywords so you can learn. We're gonna replace these keywords with actual values. So I'm gonna say position /, and then we have inline size and block size, which are effectively the width and the height of the gradient, okay? Or the background, which is a gradient in this case. So I've got my gradient, which is red, red. I'm saying don't repeat this background, position it somehow, and then make it this inline size and make it this block size. So make it this width and make it this height. Now, for this first one, I want to cover the vast majority of the card, okay? So what we're going to do is we are going to say position. I'm going to attach this to the bottom. And remember, where's my cutout area going to be? Right in here somewhere. So I can start at the bottom. I can come all the way up here until just below the border. Just below the border. Okay, so I'm going to say position is going to be the bottom. All right, so let me grab this and say bottom. And then for the inline size, it can be 100%. The block size, what if the block size, guys, is 100%? It's going to be exactly what we just had a minute ago. But I actually want calc 100% minus the border width, okay? And then I can finish off that calc. And the red, it's hard to see, okay? But the red is going to stop right below the border, okay? So I'm essentially going to be preserving everything, except right now I'm chopping out the border on top, okay? If I made this a mask right now, you would see everything except for the top border. And obviously that's not what we want, but that's a good start to getting us to where we want to go. Okay. Now, again, you don't know why I'm using a background with a linear gray. You're going to see in a minute. All we have to do is switch the property from background to mask, because masks use linear. They use the exact same properties. They use the exact same functions. They use everything. But with backgrounds, you can see what you're doing. With mask, very difficult to see what's going on. Okay. All right. So we're just using simple colors to make this work. Now, the next part of background is that you can have layers. You can have additional layers that do anything you want them to do. They're like their own independent boxes, essentially, okay? And so what I'm gonna do for this is I'm gonna put a comma, and I'm gonna come down here and say linear gradient, blue, blue, and you see right there, I can see the blue behind my red box, right? And I'm gonna say no repeat. Now, where do I want to position this one? I want to position this one at the top left, okay? So we're going to say top left, and then I'm going to do a /, which separates the position from the size, and there cannot be spaces when you do this, okay? So you have to have no spaces, just like I'm doing it here. Top left, and then what is the inline size? Well, let's start with 50%, and then what is the height? The height, guys, is the border width, okay? Now, 50% gets me all the way halfway. You can see that blue line, hopefully you can see it, going all the way up to the number. But that's not where I want my cutout to be. My cutout needs to be essentially the size of that box, okay? The size of that box. So what we're gonna do, we need to now tokenize the size of that box. If I go down here, remember where I did this inline size, this block size thing? It's just raw values. Can't do that anymore. I need a way to easily reference the size of that step or that counter, okay? So I'm gonna say counter font size is gonna be H1, and then I'm gonna say counter size is what? The calc, and I can actually do H1 times 1.5 and let H do the calc and the var for me, okay? So now I have something called a counter size. If I come down here and I go to my inline size, and I can hit Command D and select both of those, and I can just write both of them at the same time. This is multi-cursor editing. It will be var counter size for both the inline size and the block size, okay? So they're all referencing the same thing. But what that gives me is it gives me a way to go in here and reference it in a calc. I can say 50% minus the counter size, and then I will finish off that calc with another bracket, and you're gonna see that it's stopping here. But guys, that's too much. I don't want it to go the entire counter size amount away. I want it to go half because I'm on one side of the counter, okay? So instead of 50% minus counter size, I do minus counter size divided by 2, and now it's gonna stop right at the edge of the box. Let me go back here and show you something. If I go background blue, look at the box. It's stopping right at the edge of that box, okay? So now what I'm gonna do is add one more layer. Now, keep in mind, what is this blue line gonna do? it's gonna show, it's gonna allow that part of the border to show, okay? So now if I turn this into a mask, the only thing showing would be this strip right here, okay? And now what we're gonna do is hide the right side, the top right side, okay? Which I can do by grabbing this linear gradient, pasting it down here, and I'm gonna say green, and I'm gonna say green, and then I've no repeat, top what? Top right, and then calc 50% plus, okay, I think, let me see, plus counter size divided by 2. Let me put a 50% in here and just see if we can identify our green. So I have no repeat, top right. Oh, I got to put a comma there, okay? Not a semicolon, a comma. And there's green. Green's not a good color for this. Let's go with, we got blue, we got red, we got, how about black? Can I see black better? There we go, black. So now we can see the black line, right? And then I can take this calc again. I think if I'm doing my math right, we're just gonna have to change this to a plus maybe. Calc divided by 2, finish up. Nope, it's actually the exact same calc. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Because it's coming from the other edge. Okay, so now the only thing that will be hidden is the dotted lines. Everything is protected from showing in terms of how masks work. Like whatever is a black color, we're gonna change all these to black, is going to show up. And then whatever doesn't have a color on it, that's going to be deleted. It's gonna go away, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this entire, actually, we're not done, okay? I'm gonna show you, just turn background into mask, okay? And then if I change these red, all right, to black, and blue to black, okay? We're gonna be masking this out. It's on the wrong element right now, so I'm gonna copy the entire mask. I'm gonna come down to my before, where this is where the border actually lives, and I'm gonna paste the mask on here, okay? Let's go ahead and hit save. Let's go view this on the front end. We are cutting out the number from the border, guys, okay? Now, I'm not done yet. I gotta clean up now. You gotta clean up a little bit, okay? I'm gonna take this entire mask, and I bet you didn't know you could do this. And I'm gonna make a locally scoped variable called mask. And I'm gonna come up here and I'm gonna say mask. And I'm gonna paste that entire linear gradient function. And now what I can do, because what you have to do for Mac's browser compatibility is you have to do WebKit mask and reference it again, okay? So I've got my WebKit mask as a mask, I've got my mask as a mask, and save. And now go to the front end, and we are looking really good. So this auto counts. Let's duplicate this a couple times. Look at this, 4, 5, 6. I mean, that is just absolutely fantastic, right? All right, now what did I mean when I said we have to create unbreakable situations? Well, what if I wanted that 2 to be the H2 size? I can change this counter font size. Oh, look, it's not doing anything. We didn't link it up. So I need to go down here and link that up. So the font size, line height's 1, font size is counter font size, okay? So that is linked up now. And this var H1 doesn't do us any good. That actually needs to be counter font size. And now watch this. I go H2, H3. Oh, what's not changing, guys? The position of the number, okay? You need to look at everything that can potentially break when these things change. So if we go to our inset, and oh, look, we just statically referenced that. Not good, not good. So what we want is a calc of our counter size divided by -2. And that's gonna put it back in the same spot, but watch this now. If I go up and change counter font size, 2, 3, look, it doesn't leave its position, and the mask is responding. The size of the mask is responding to the number. So we have an unbreakable situation in terms of if I need to change the size of these numbers, I can change the size of them. Their position doesn't break. The mask size doesn't break. And if I change the background of this, so let's say I do something like BG ultralight, okay? Look at that. I don't have to worry about the color of the cutout. It just handles it for me. What if, let's take that class off of there. Let's go to process section, okay? Let's go to background and do a linear gradient. And let's do var BG ultralight, okay? And we want another color, which is going to be var BG light, okay? BG ultralight, BG light. It's hard to tell that's a gradient, but it is. Let's make it a little bit more obvious. Let's do base ultralight, and let's do base semi-light or something. Semi-light. There's a gradient, okay? This would not be possible if you didn't use the tech. I know this doesn't look good. If you didn't use the technique that we use, if you used a background color on this number, like this is what a lot of people do. A lot of people say, okay, the background is, I'm gonna say base ultralight. Okay, base ultralight, just like that. And then they're gonna go in and on that number, they're gonna say that the background is base ultralight and it matches, right? But if I change the background on this section, okay, so let's say it could be a gradient. Let me go back here. All right, so it could be base light. There's our gradient. Oh my gosh, look how ugly that is now. So you can fake it by making a solid colored background on your number, but you can't use gradients now. You can't use patterns in the background now. See, the way that we approached it in this training, I didn't need any background. I'm using masks. So I don't need a background on these numbers. If I go take the background off of my number, you're gonna see that it works perfectly. And it doesn't matter what the background is. So it's an unbreakable situation in terms of the size of the numbers. It's an unbreakable situation in the fact that they automatically count themselves. It's an unbreakable situation in the sense that I can use a background pattern or a background gradient on the section. I never have to worry. I've got all this flexibility in what I built, and I never have to worry about it all falling apart because somebody decided to change one little thing, and now we got to start recalculating things, or, oh, we can't do that background gradient because XYZ, blah, 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 right? Nope, no, we don't need any of those limitations. You build something the right way, and it's going to be unbreakable. This is an example of an unbreakable situation. Let me go back to camera. Okay, drop your comments below. Let me know what you thought of this tutorial. Do you want more of these tutorials? It is hard to find. I'll just be honest. It's hard to find tutorials where it appeals to beginners and intermediate and advanced, and it happens to be super practical. It's something everybody, there's not a ton of the, I don't know. Maybe I just need to think harder, but I feel like there was so much that you were able to pick up in this training. And it's one of those that you're probably going to want to bookmark. You're probably going to want to go back through it, at least go back and reference certain parts of it. Okay. There's so much that you can learn in this one training, but I need you to drop a comment below. Let me know what you thought. Drop a like on the video and share it as well if you would like. I'll be back very, very soon. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for spending some time with me. And that's it. Peace.